Yesterday, Treyarch released the music video for Gorod Krovi. Unlike other music videos, this one is a bit underwhelming. The Zezeba no Shima music video was crazy. It had a lot of new scenes we had never seen before, and these scenes gave us a lot of new information or made us question what we understood about the story. It was something that we were able to discuss for weeks to come, and this one is underwhelming. There isn't really as much to discuss. There are, though, a couple shots that I thought might be worth discussing and seeing what kind of information we can pull from them. The first bit I'd like to note is a sequence that you see play throughout the trailer. It's broken up into a bunch of little pieces and almost out of order. But when you take the clips and you rearrange them, you can kind of see how Nikolai ended up in his mech. What he did was he awoke to see the dragon, and then he just kind of crawled into the mech, started wrecking stuff, causing havoc, and then went on to fight the dragon. I know I had previously discussed this before. We had talked about how there was a resistance from the people of the city to try to take it back, and we had assumed that then Nikolai was part of that resistance, and they used those mech units because the mech units seemed to be the only thing that was able to penetrate the dragon's skin. Maybe the dragons were fighting the mechs, ended up defeating most of them, and that mech was abandoned, and Nikolai, when he awoke in a drunken state, saw the dragon and then went after it with the mech suit. That's probably what happened in this sequence here, and how Nikolai ends up in the mech during Gorod Krovi. The next part of the trailer is the most frustrating part of the trailer, and the reason it's so frustrating is because I feel like we keep seeing the same things over and over and over, but we're not getting much of an explanation. And then when I make videos discussing it, I find myself repeating the same things. I feel like a broken record. Yet Treyarch keeps bringing these things up, and we have to talk about it, we have to acknowledge it, but we're not getting any new information from it. In this sequence, we see Nikolai kill everyone. He just finished murdering Tank, throws Richtofen off the building, holds an axe to Nikolai, and then curb stomps Takeo. Now, it's pretty brutal what he does to Takeo, but it's just ridiculous. Why does he go after our characters? This isn't something that happens in-game. It's not exactly canon, and it's not something that we really need to consider in the overarching story, but it's still something we need to consider, and it's not the first time we've seen this happen. In the Takeo's memory trailer, we saw everybody turn on one another, and there are all these quick sequences of our characters about to or in the process of murdering one another. We then saw in the Zezeba no Shima music video, Takeo had killed everyone, and he had this weird remorse about it, and we couldn't understand why, because these are things that never happen in game. There's never a part of it in the linear structure of the story as we move from map to map to map to map. But it probably happened, just it might not be important, but why would Treyarch still want to show it to us if it isn't something that affected the overarching story? There's of course the theory that our characters are part of a cycle, and every time they fail the cycle, they restart it. It's an infinite loop. We've seen this before in Die Rise. Every time they died, Richtofen would respawn them and tell them to begin anew. In Mob of the Dead, our characters also found themselves in an infinite cycle. There's a suggestion that Shadows of Evil is in a very similar cycle, and there's also a suggestion that the entire zombie storyline is in a similar cycle to this, and maybe every time our characters die, they restart, and they keep dying for whatever reason. We just don't see it because the version that we're playing through is the final version, the one in which they got everything right, almost like a Groundhog's Day scenario. And in one scenario, which we see in the Takeo's memory trailer, they keep flipping on each other. They keep murdering each other for some reason. And then in the music video, Takeo's the one who flips. Maybe he just is overwhelmed by finding his way of life crumble that he just snaps, or something like that. It's strange, and here we have in the Gorod Krovi music video, maybe because Nikolai wasn't willing to go down without a fight. Remember, he does shoot his own self, which proves that he is willing to fight to the end. That in some universes, in some variations of this timeline, he actually does succeed, and he is able to kill our other characters, unlike in the Gorod Krovi ending when unfortunately he misses and hits the plate of Nikolai. There's also another theory that I like to discuss, and I talked about this a lot when I was showing the Takio's memory trailer. It's this idea of Takio's visions. Throughout Black Ops 3, he keeps talking about having these terrible visions. He never goes into them, but maybe these are the visions. Maybe he has visions of alternate realities in which our characters died. Maybe for some reason, these memories stick with them. Whenever our characters repeat a cycle, their memories are wiped. Or at least whenever they're forced to repeat a cycle, they don't remember what they previously did. But what if Takio has the ability to? And what if what he's seeing every time he has these visions are the previous iterations of their lives that failed, and he is being haunted by all the previous moments in which maybe Nikolai murdered them, or Takio flipped, or the characters betrayed one another, and that could be what's haunting him, and maybe that allows him to make better decisions as he goes on. That could be the purpose of the visions. Or maybe they're not. Maybe they're not real. Could it be that somebody's messing with his head, perhaps the Apothecans, perhaps Monty, and he's just feeding them these ideas that make him distrust his other members of his crew? Could be the case. It's still very strange to think about, because like I said, in many ways they're canon and in many ways they happened, but they're also not a part of the story that we're playing through in Black Ops 3. The story from a linear perspective, where we go from here to here to here to here, and we complete every challenge that we go through, is the story we're playing. And in this story, the characters don't flip and betray one another, which makes us question, where do these other instances happen? Because if we're seeing them, they must have happened. We just don't know where and when. That's going to wrap things up for this video. This is complicated, this is confusing, and this is really the only thing we can draw from this music video. There's Nikolai getting the mech, which was interesting to see, and it's our characters murdering one another again, and this just presents more questions than answers, which seems to be a common theme in many of these music videos. I'm going to wrap this video up though. If you enjoyed it or found it interesting, maybe give it a like, possibly subscribe for more. I'm going to be continuing to cover the zombie storyline as we get more information. I'd imagine leading up to Revelations, we're going to get a lot of new stuff. We've gotten 2 trailers 2 weeks in a row. There's probably more coming, so stay tuned. Have a fantastic day, and bye.